That was a funny joke, wasn't it? Hey, welcome back to the garage, everyone. All right, in today's video, we covered a lot of technical ground, and there was a lot of head scratching, a lot of research, a lot of phone calls, question asking. So there's a ton of information in today's video, so I hope you find it useful. So let's go ahead and dig right in right now. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to start doing our bell housing to crank alignment, and basically it's a check, right? What you got to do is make sure the transmission is, you know, dead nut straight with the crankshaft. That's really what you're doing. So what you do is you put the bell housing on here and you bolt it up snugly along with the flight wheel. You bolt the flywheel up, and then you put a dial indicator on the flywheel, and then you measure the runout as you twirl the engine, and you measure that run out, and the dial indicator is going to be facing or touching the inside bore of the hole in the bell housing. So, and you're allowed 5 thousandths according to SilverSport transmission. That is a check we have to do next, and I just realized that I still have the original pilot bushing up in there, and I'm going to have to get that out, I guess, before we get started. Well, I don't suppose I have to do that now. I could do that later. So, all right, let me go ahead and get the flywheel, and let's bolt that up. I got these tires sitting here. I had it in my brain that I was going to set the engine on the tires while I turned the engine over, instead of trying to turn the engine over while it's hanging from the engine stand, or from the engine hoist, rather. There's one odd hole. I'm assuming the odd hole here matches the odd hole there, doesn't it? One would think, anyway. And it's one heavy piece of steel, I guarantee you that. So these are the original bolts, by the way. The original flywheel bolts. And what you got to do is give yourself some room for the dial indicator. So we're going to leave 2 of these empty. So we're going to do 4 bolts. And they're going to be tightened slightly. Well, you know, snugly, I guess you might say. All right, let me go get a socket for that. I can't recall what it is. I think it's like 11/16. All right, we're going to put our bell housing up there next. You know, there's no bolt in the center. Not sure what that's about, really. So you got to put a magnetic mount here for the dial indicator, and I debated on, well, should I do that now and then put this on, or should I put this on and then do that, right? Can I just place it down in there and, like, yeah, I think I can do it. Let's put this on first and then we'll do that. All right, we're getting ready to do this bell housing run out measurement here. It took me a while to get this dial indicator set up. Clearly I'm using the original bell housing, and this hole here is pretty small. It's only 4 5/8. If you used an aftermarket bell housing, the hole would probably be a lot bigger to facilitate this measurement. I actually had to modify this thing, this mount. This internal bar here usually has this offset measurement doohickey that you can adjust, you know, the angle on, but I lopped it off with a cutoff wheel because it was just in my way. Also had to take this out. There was this little nub that screwed in here, held the it was a resting point for the clutch fork. So I had to take that out because that was interfering with the tool as well. So a couple of challenges. All right, so I'm following the SilverSport transmission bell housing run out procedure, and both reading the book and looking at their video online. I've already run it around to make sure that the gauge stays in contact with the inner surface of the bell housing hole. So our first step is to go ahead and spin the motor around and make sure that once we get back to this point right here, our meter stays at 0. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, we are back to the 0 point. Man, that's spot on. So what I'm going to do now is just go back and look at my video, see if there's any anomalies, and then we'll go ahead and start doing the measurement. All right, we're going ahead and spin it around, and we're going to get our most positive number. That's our first step. I did this once before, but I forgot to tighten all of my bell housing bolts to the proper spec. And so I did that and readjusted everything. So I'm going to do it once again anyway. So just to make sure we do it properly. So let's go ahead and spin it around and note our most positive number. Think positively. That's negative, but apparently we're not concerned with that right now. So let's keep positive. Still negative. Boy, we're just a negative nanny today. Negative 19. Negative 9. Almost back to 0. That's negative 1. All right, we're back to 0. So, astonishingly, we inadvertently picked the most positive number to be right where we started. All right, so up next, I'll go ahead and take a look at the video. Seeing as how our starting point is, in fact, the most positive number, that's where we're going to start the next step of our measurements from. So, the next step is to take a 180-degree point from what would have been your new most positive number, which in this case, it already started that way, so we don't make a change. And then we take 180 degrees out and we go down here and we note this measurement. So we need to figure out what that measurement is. Let's say it's, I don't know, 20 thousandths in the negative, right? And then we divide that number in 2 and we'll get, let's say 10 thousandths. I'm making numbers up because I haven't looked at the video yet. And then that 10 thousandths that's your run out. So then you'll have to purchase the necessary offset dowel pins to move your bell housing. But let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. So let me take a look at the video and figure out what this 180-degree measurement is. Seeing as how our most positive number is precisely where we started, and I went back and looked at the video, and I went to the 180-degree mark is about right there, okay, and that, as you saw previously, that was at negative 0.019, 19 thousandths, which equates to, if you divide that by 2, you get 0.0095. All right, so that means that your run out is 9.5 thousandths, and that we need to order some shims. Or not shims, offset dowel pins. So I think I'm just going to call SilverSport and order theirs because they have some pretty nice ones. And that also tells us which direction the bell housing needs to go, which basically means it needs to go pretty much straight up by 9.5 thousandths. Well, we know the spec is no greater than 5 thousandths of run out, and the smallest increment that you can purchase, to my knowledge, is a 7 thousandths offset dowel pin for your bell housing. That'll reduce your run out to 2.5 thousandths. So that is well within the spec. So anyway, went ahead and made a phone call to SilverSport Transmissions, and I ordered their 7 thousandths offset dowel pins. And the good thing about their product is it just inserts easily and has an Allen set screw down through the center so you can tighten it up. If you screw it up after you redo the measurement, you go, oh, that's not quite right. I should have pointed it maybe, say, that way a little more, right? So you can loosen it and pull it easily out and then move it a little bit and reinsert it, tighten it up. So, yes, they're a little pricey, but they're worth the money. Because if you get the El Cheapo ones, you're going to still pay, I don't know, you're going to pay 30 or 40 bucks, right? But they're a press fit. If you put them in there and you screw it up, now you're drilling, tapping, griping, cussing, and starting all over. and you'll have to get new ones, right? So you might as well get the peace of mind, buy the good product, and that way you know you have a good feeling that, you know, you can make an adjustment if you need to. All right, so we got to have new dowel pins here. So actually, I didn't know that there was a hole in the back and I could punch this out. So we got to have new ones anyway, so let's go ahead and punch these out next. How about that? Let's just see how well this works out here. We're gonna go gentle. Hey, look at that. All right, let's do the other one. There we go. And that's what that looks like. Kind of looks like a primitive muzzleloader bullet from the Civil War, doesn't it? Interesting. I don't guess there's any need in cleaning them up. I don't know, maybe somebody want them. Wonder what these are worth. $1? Tell me down in the comments down below. Are these worth anything at all? All right, got a little wire brush on the drill here. Let's go ahead and clean that hole up. That's pretty nice. All thing to do now is wait for the new dowel pins to come in the mail. Oh, and by the way, the whole measurement thing with the dial and all that jazz, I got it just right. So I basically just removed it and set it over here for safekeeping until we need to put it on there again. I won't have to rethink this fiasco. Another thing we got today was some brand new flywheel bolts from O'Reilly. And these are from Pioneer, made in the USA in Meridian, Mississippi. Can you believe it? These are pretty much OEM replacements. They look exactly like the originals. And there's, to include the star washers, just like the OEM bolts. I got people down in Meridian. That kind of makes me happy. So, man, that's all right. Another thing I got was a brand new set of clutch pressure plate bolts. These came in from Mr. Gasket, and they got them from O'Reilly as well. They're pretty old. The package is pretty dusty, so, but we're gonna go with them. And this is the Mr. Gasket pressure plate bolt kit. It's real simple. It's just 3/8 by 16 by an inch long. It's grade 8, 6 pieces. Been on the shelf so long, it's got some flash rust in the package. Not sure where these are made. It says Mr. Gasket, but it looks, look at that, man. I'm guessing probably Taiwan. It doesn't say. If you guys know where these are made, comment down below. In this nondescript Mr. Gasket package, where were these bolts made? It says Cleveland, Ohio, but man, I don't believe that. And also the bolts that hold the Bellhousing to the engine, we're gonna go ahead and replace those as well, because mine are boogered up. I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get those from a local parts house that I know I can go in there and give him, you know, $5 and get, you know, onesie twosies. There's 6 of them. I can probably get them for $1.50 to $2 a piece. I can come away from there to $8 to $10 and have new Bellhousing bolts. Those are 1.5 inch long, and they have flanged heads and grade 8, of course. All right, while we're waiting on our offset dowel pins to come in the mail, let's go ahead and take this original Pilot bushing out. The new one we got in from SilverSport is an actual bearing. So anyway, we're going to use the old bread trick. So if you're not familiar with that, it's you could use grease, but that just makes a big old mess. Basically, you shove the bread down in there, and then you get something that's about the same size, and you hammer it down in there. And the bread's got nowhere to go except for to go to the side and press this bushing out of the hole. Kind of an ingenious little trick, but pretty much one that all major gearheads already know. I've done this once before. On my old CJ7, I changed out the clutch one time in it. I changed out the pilot bearing, I had the flywheel surfaced and all that jazz. Pretty much what we're doing here. It's an old stale hot dog bun. And it takes a while. You got to compress the bread, you know. That bread, it compresses quite a bit, so. That's a problem. So the bread's coming back out around my chisel there. I may have to go find one that's a little bit wider. Let me go see if I can find something that's a little wider. All right, I got this great big honking 5/8 bolt. I took it over to the bench grinder and flattened the threads on the tip of it there. Let's see what that does. Well, the bread is not coming out around it. All right, I took down the rest of the threads on this bolt. Basically ruined the bolt. That's all right. It's gonna be a little tricky, I think. That ain't working. It worked before. Let me dig that bread out of there and make sure this thing isn't too big to get down in there. All right, so she fits down in there real nice. And I got some bread down in there. Let's give that a whack. Put a little more in there. I don't feel confident. All right, that pilot bushing's been in there 46 years. I don't think bread's gonna get it. So I had to go do some research, seeing as how this is only the second time I've ever done this in my life. We're gonna do something a little different. So there's a gap in there in the back behind there, right? You can feel it between the end of the bushing and the crank. So 5/16 bolt and a nut, and put that nut in that gap behind the pilot bushing. And then we're gonna take this screwdriver and we're gonna butt it up against that nut, keep it from turning, hopefully. Kind of put it in a bind like that, and I'll kind of pry on it to the right. Not a lot, mind you. And then I'm gonna come in here with a 1/2 inch on my battery wrench. Y'all bear with me here. Changing out my fittings, tools and whatnot. And let's see what the hell this will do. Never done this before. That's the wrong way. It ain't gonna work that way. Let's try again. All right, get the end of the nut flush with the bolt there. Reinsert, pry a little bit. Set your tool to go clockwise. All right, so it didn't work. All right, so the nut slipped out. So basically that's what happened. It's slipping. How can I keep that from slipping? All right, got it in there in more of a twisting fashion. Let's see what that does. No, that slipped out too. All right, so the bread trick didn't really work all that well. Well, it didn't work at all, actually. This pilot bushing is really in there. I started messing around with this 5/8 inch bolt and you know, took some of the threads off of it, and I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna bang on this engine anymore. I'm gonna go get a, you know, slide hammer. I got this 2-pound slide hammer from Harbor Freight. You guys have probably seen this kit elsewhere. It spreads out like that. Put it all the way in there. Then we're gonna spread it apart until I get some resistance. Yep, there we go. All right, so let's do the slide hammer thing. That is one stubborn bush. Slipped out. Let's see, did we break it? Yeah, I think something happened here. What's going on? Let's try again here. Yeah, this one here on this side, it doesn't want to play anymore. Maybe I broke something off of it. Let's see. Yeah, I thought I heard something fly. A little piece of metal broke off the end. So that little guy right there, he's not gonna play anymore. So this one tightens up, but that one won't. What a pain in the ass. All right, we're gonna try this one next. This is, well, you get it. It's just a single, you know. And it doesn't hold. So, all right, so this is the last fitting in the kit that might work. So, well, there's a bigger one, but this is the only one that has a chance of really fitting. So, this kit was $30, by the way. Yeah. Alright, so I had to go modify the smallest brackets or pullers or whatever you want to call them in the set, and had to grind some off of the claws there, whatever you call them. And they don't exactly, I was thinking they would fit flush, but they don't, so whatever. I'll just use that screwdriver I had earlier. Let's try that. At first you don't succeed. Keep on sucking until you do succeed. I saw that recently on, what was it, Dead Dodge Garage or something? That guy's pretty funny. Well, it's biting, but my hammer's only a 2-pound. Well, it's slipping out, and it's basically just eating away at the bushing, the bronze bushing. That's not doing a whole lot of good, is it? It just doesn't want to go. I'm just going to start throwing stuff at it and see what sticks here. All right, I put the biggest slide hammer I had on it. That thing ain't budging. I was able to twist the screwdriver in there, and you know, it's just ridiculous. It's just in there. It ain't coming out. I'm not going to go with the hydraulic thing. That ain't going to do nothing. So at this point, I think I'm just going to start using cutting tools and just kind of waller it out of there. So probably going to take several hours. Sometimes it just comes to this. All right, so got this little mini lathe bit on my Dremel. By the way, this is practically a vintage instrument now. Bought this in 1999, and she still works just fine. So 25-year-old Dremel tool, how about that? So you can see right there, I'm about halfway through the bronze pilot bushing, basically milling my way through it. I'm not going all the way to the crank surface, obviously, because I don't want to nick the crank. But anyway, I'm just trying to take as much material out of here as I can to loosen this thing up. So slowly but surely, we're actually doing something that's making some kind of progress. All right, you can see that I was finally able to move it. I had to take the Dremel tool and weaken it. I cut a groove here, and I turned the motor over, and I cut a groove there. Finally was able to weaken it enough to where it loosened up. I just wanted to show you that before it came out. There we go. That's probably, well, I was going to say that's the most stubborn pilot bearing I've ever heard of, but then again, I've only ever removed 2 in my life, including this one. And I did it without even screwing up my crankshaft. How about that? Not a nick. Well, no, I'll take that back. I got a little nick up there. Very minor. But that's not going to hurt the new bearing, so we're good. Let me get the vacuum cleaner and get that cleaned up. All right, looking pretty good. One little nick right up there on the inside, but we got it out of there without too much carnage. So, oh yeah, and that bolt trick I was trying earlier. Well, anyway, the bolt trick I was trying earlier, the bolt ended up bending. It came out of there looking like that. It wasn't stout enough to push that bushing out. Oh man, I tell you what, that thing was in there. That makes me happy. All right, I'm gonna finish cleaning this mess up here. All right, so here it is Friday afternoon. We received our 7/1000 offset dowel pins from SilverSport Transmissions. Part number is BHG-1007. Came in a little baggie, but the packaging was excellent, by the way. So what's special about these is you have flat spots here to get a wrench on it if you need to. The business end, the end that goes into the block, is expandable like a concrete anchor. Has a split in it and it's threaded. and it has an Allen screw in this end, so you can slip it into the block any way you want, and then you use the Allen key to tighten it down tighten it into the block. Now let's say you do all that and put the thing back together and you recheck and everything, and so it's a little off, you know. Oh, I got to reposition it. Okay, no problem. Take the bell housing back off, loosen this, and it just slips right out. This is a little pricey, but if I screw it up and use the the regular ones, and you tap it in there, it's a press fit, and you have to take it. Let's say you got to do it 2 or 3 times. Well, you're just going to wear it out. You're going to wear out the bore in the block. You're going to wear out the dowel pin. And you got to get another one. I'm going to go this route. So this is what we're doing. If you recall from the measurement, we were pretty much going to go straight up with this bell housing. And of course, both of these have to point in the same direction. And there's a mark right here. It's actually the part number of this offset dowel from the original manufacturer. It's written in there. It's just basically it's a number. I think it's actually the manufacturer's part number, but it isn't an arrow or anything like that. It's just a number, and it just says this is the high end, the high spot, right? So the high range was 0, and I had it marked, say, right there. But really, the meter came back to 0 like anywhere inside this range. So as long as we are pointed, I guess, straight up, and we can afford to go off to the right a little bit with it. So that's kind of what I was going to do, was go off to the right a little bit. It's a very nice, tight slip fit. So if you look at the original dowels, I was trying to figure out how far should I put them in, right? Because they're really long. And so I looked at the original one, and then the original one only had what is that, about 1/2 inch of grip right there. So really you only need to put from here down into the block up to this line right here. So a little extra. We can use a 9/16 wrench to maneuver it if we want to, which is really, really nice, by the way. So if I was to say, let's see, that is straight up and down with the block, I'm gonna go slightly off to the right, just a touch. And we'll put our little locking screw in there. This shouldn't take a whole lot of force, really. I'm just gonna snug it, and that should be fine. All right, let's do the other side. It was really hot earlier today, and this rain shower we're having right now is gonna cool us down really well. All right. I guarantee you these are worth the money. All right, that should be perfectly fine. All right, let me go ahead and hang this bell housing up next. Okay, we're back. So we got the bell housing on there, and she's a tight fit with these new dowel pins. These, the stock pins, you know, comically only about, you see that blue paint right there? I mean, this is the one that stuck out a lot. The other one, it was only like that, there wasn't even really any alignment, not really, with the other pins. I mean, there was just nothing sticking out there hardly. Anyway, so it was pretty tight. Got a rubber hammer out and just gently tapped on either end. I've got one of those wire brushes you use to clean out a hole with, and I put that on the drill, and I just wire brushed the bell housing just to clean it up just a touch. And I put a little WD-40 on it, and I gently eased it into position with the rubber hammer, and it worked out well. Let's go ahead and get our bolts in here. I still haven't got the new bell housing bolts, so we're using the old ones until we get new ones. All right, we got the dial indicator pretty much in the same spot. We should be good to go. I'm not even going to worry with the twirl it around and see if it stays in contact thing. We're just going to observe that going around, and then if we're fortunate, we'll just include both those steps into one and use this go around as our measurement. We need to go ahead and zero the meter. All right, look at that, straight up and down, baby. Could you get any better than that? Now you're at an angle, so if you were straight on, you'd be like that, okay? But you're straight behind the motor, but the dial indicator is at an angle to your right, so bear that in mind when you look at the meter. And I just thought it would be kind of neat for somebody to have a good bird's eye view of the dial indicator as it went around after we do the correction. Hopefully we did it correctly. All right, so now let me put my 5/8 on my big socket wrench and spin this motor around. Here goes nothing or something. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. You gotta have something if you want to do some stuff. Oh, we're gonna go slow here. Do a little, just a slight turn there, just to make sure everything's kosher. Hey, look at that, we went into the positive some. We never did that on the first go around. Everything was in the negative. We're up to what, 15? All right, I'm gonna go inside, grab this video, and locate the high spot. Figure out where that is, and reposition our meter. All right, the next day, we're back. So I ran into some problems through a lot of head scratching and research, and I haven't tested my theories yet, but we're about to. If you noticed earlier in the video, this dowel pin over here, the original one, it wasn't even sticking out very far. I don't think the original dowel pins were doing any kind of alignment, not really, because when you take the bell housing on and off, it would go on easily. I mean, there was no resistance whatsoever. And I dare say, if I was to take this whole thing back off of here, take one of those original dowel pins and put it in that hole, it would probably just rattle around in there. I really don't think there was any stock alignment. There may have been some originally when it was manufactured, but I really don't think there was any valid original alignment on which to base this particular measurement, if you follow my meaning. So this is what happened. I took my original measurement using the stock dowel pins, which was basically a meaningless measurement, and then I attempted to correct it with the new dowel pins, and I just took the new measurement, and now I'm getting a run out of about 10 degrees in the opposite direction. It's too high, it says now, so which was astonishing and confusing at first. I said, well, let's do a sanity check. I moved the meter down to a different location, and I said, okay, let's call that 0 now. I twirled it around, and I got my high spot was down here, right at 6 thousandths, okay, in the positive. So that's what you do when you first go around. You'd find your most positive number, and you twirl it on around. The next step is clearly to move the indicator to the high spot, which is about right there, okay, re-zero, and then go 180 out, which is in this location around over here. I didn't go through that extra step because once you get familiar with it, you can just do the math. So here's the high spot. It was 6 thousandths, and I just went ahead and read it over here, 180 out. It said about negative 15 thousandths. So the difference there is about 21 thousand. So then you take that 21, you lop it in half, and that gives you 10 and a half. It's between 10 and 11, right? So that's your run out. And the first time I measured, I got 9.5, and I marked it down here. So what does that mean? That means the original dowel pins were bullshit. And what we're going to do now, this is my new plan. What we're going to do now is we're just going to call this the original measurement, okay? And with these dowel pins pointed straight up the way they are, we know that they're 7 thousandths off. So if I take these and I turn them down, I should get into tolerance. So that's the plan. I'm going to loosen all these bolts, and then I'm going to put a wrench on this flat right here, and I'm going to turn these guys down and point them down, and we're going to move the bell housing that way, and we're going to retake the measurement. All right, so my Rode wireless stuff is on the charger. We're going to just play it by ear, as it were. So the audio quality will be a little bit different, but it'll be okay. All right, so we got the dowel pins pointed downward, and I've got the bell housing back on here and got it torqued down to 30 foot-pounds. We're going to call this our 0 mark. Got the dial indicator zeroed out, so let's go ahead and get started. It's like +3 or 4. +4. And that is +7. About the 2 o'clock position. 4.5 there at the 1 o'clock position. That's about 5 right there. All right, I think we're finally done with this measurement. So on that last go around there, you noted that the high spot was 7 thousandths over here around the 2 o'clock position, and the 180 degree out mark over here about the 8 o'clock position was around 1,000th. I've actually done this 2 or 3 times just to make sure. I've gotten 8.5, I've gotten 7, I've gotten 7.5. And I'll always get around 1 right over here at the 180 degree out. So if you were to zero your meter right here and then take it back over here, the difference between the 7 and the 1, if you measure this 7 and that 1, that's a difference of 8. Divide that, that's 4. Let's say it's on the outside, it was 8.5 and 1. Okay, so that's 9.5. Divide that by 2. That's still less than 5, 4.75, whatever it is. So we're done. That makes me happy. So I'm going to take the bell housing back off. We're going to replace all of the bolts in the flywheel, and then we're going to install the clutch pressure plate. Then we'll reinstall the flywheel with brand new bolts. So let's get busy doing that now. All right, new flex plate bolts torqued. How about that? Flex plate bolts. Say that like 10 times really fast. Let's put our clutch on. I'm gonna just wipe this down with a little brake clean first. Get the dust off of it. Got a little flash rust on it, but that's all right. That's perfectly fine. There we got some dust off of there. So. All right, so this is our clutch disc. This is actually the original one. Well, since I had a new clutch put in this thing in 1997 when I bought it, whether or not this is the one that came in the factory, I really don't know, but this is the one that probably this is the new one that Amco put in there in 97, shortly after I bought the car. And it's marked, it says flywheel side, so that's good. 97501 LUK written on there. What's over here? This is 99701 LUK. Well, anyway, I had the modern fancy material put on here by Birmingham Friction. What they do is they remanufacture clutches and big truck drum brakes and things like that. So anyway, that's our new clutch disc. And I had the pressure plate resurfaced while I was at it. So let me grab that and wipe that down too while I'm thinking about it. And I had to go up to O'Reilly and get myself a new clutch alignment tool. It's a Pioneer as well. Look at that. Meridian, Mississippi. Man, I kind of like seeing that stuff made in the USA. That's all right. I like that. That makes me happy. All right, let's get our tool in place. And we're going to immediately stop what we were doing. All right, let's go ahead and get this pilot bushing up in there. I actually asked this question online. I was like, well, which side goes in, you know? I'm gonna make an assumption that says this side here, where you can actually see the end of the bearing, goes up in there. That way, because like the grease would, if the grease comes out, it'd come out from that end and would go up inside the motor and then come back. I don't know, that's my thinking anyway. But, you know, we'll see what happens here. A lot of guys don't like these bearings, but that's what came in the kit, so that's what I'm using. All right, this is gonna be one of those things where you gotta hold your mouth just right. And I hope I don't have to get that out of there anytime soon. It's a tight one. One more tap. There we go. All right, we're done. Let's get our alignment tool in place here and act like we know what we're doing. Clearly, I'm off to a poor start. There we go. All right, these get 30 foot-pounds. All right, we got 30 all the way around. That's one clutch installed. And our tool slides in and out freely, so that's good. I'm just gonna leave it in there for emotional well-being. Let's get her bolted up here. You know you're home when you hear the slap, especially if you're in a dysfunctional household. All right, got some brand new bolts. How about that? That was a funny joke, wasn't it? To me it was, anyway. No, it's not gonna go. Are we gonna have problems? So I think I know what the issue is. It's the homemade bolts. So I couldn't find 1¼ inch long bolts, you know, and all I could find was 1½ inch. Of course, I wanted 3/8/16. Need to have the flange head on it. Need to have grade 8, but a little harder to find than you think. O'Reilly had one pack of 4 across town, and they didn't have all of them. Anyway, I found these at Napa, but they were 1½ inch long, and I just brought them back here and I lopped them off. Lopped off 1/4 inch and I tapered the end. So, but you know, it'll work. It'll be fine. All right, let me torque these real quick. All right, there you go. I hope I don't have to take that off of there again, but don't be surprised if I don't have to. I guess we can go ahead and put this little rubber cover on. This is where the hydraulic line goes through in here to the new hydraulic throwout bearing. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm assuming this little nipple here sticks on the outside, not on the inside where the spinny stuff is. Shoot, man, that looks professional. All right, so that little, I don't guess, so there was a little doohickey right here that went to the old clutch fork, you know, it screws in right there, and it stuck out a little bit inside there. Since the transmission bolts up here and covers that up, I don't reckon there's any need to put that back in there, really, at all. So I reckon we'll just leave it alone and not put that back in there. All right, I'm just reading through the instructions here, trying to make sure I do everything correctly. SilverSport said to test shift the transmission, so I got the shifter out of the bag there, bolted it up loosely by hand, and I went through all the gears. Obviously, you want to put the gear shifter in, say, first, turn this, put your finger back here and feel the spline shaft. It should turn in the same direction, clearly, and you go through all the gears and do that. So when you're in neutral, right, you can move it side to side, and you turn this and you put your finger back there, and you should be able to hold that steady. It should not turn. You can feel a little bit. It wants to turn it a little bit, but you can hold it with your finger. All right, so, and then of course you put it all the way over here in reverse and then turn it, and clearly it'll go in the opposite direction. So basically they're just saying, look, you need to make sure it functions correctly before you put it in the car, because something could have happened in the shipping, and that's a fair statement in the manual. It's a good thing to put in the book, so just double check it before you put it on the car, because you put it in there and it doesn't work, then you got to yank it back out again, then you're in a mess. Okay, so anyway, so the old girl shifts just fine, so let's move on. All right, a momentous occasion. The Tremec TKX 5-speed is finally out of the box. And alongside the older brother, the Borg-Warner Super T10 4-speed, close ratio. Take a look at it first. Throwout bearing, standard GM 26 spline, 1 1/8 shaft. Throwout bearing's fine. Spins just fine. On the business side over here, this is where all your linkages went for the shifting mechanism. The shifter came down through here, and there's like a ton of shifting rods. They're all sitting over there on the bench. The shifting rods and linkages and bolts and levers and pry bars, and it's just a convoluted big old mess. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with this transmission. It's in perfect working order. It's just a 4-speed with a 1-to-1 ratio and bulletproof, but got no overdrive. And the gears are, well, anyway, they're close. It's hard to drive, especially in traffic. This was the option that you bought on your Corvette if you wanted to drag race from light to light. That's what it was for. So here you go, Tremec TKX. SilverSport Transmissions went ahead and installed the hydraulic throwout bearing carrier. And this basically, with this positioning dowel here, the hydraulic slave cylinder will slide up against that and bolt into place. And then there's some measurements that we have to take here pretty soon, so that'll probably be our next step. Electrical connectors, you know, backup lights, speedometer, so on and so forth, here and there. And one of these is the fill plug. I think that's the fill plug right there. Might be the backup light. I can't recall which. It doesn't matter. There's a little vent cap. Not sure what that is. We'll find out later. This stuff here, you got to temporarily remove this from the transmission before you put it in the car. We'll do that later. Obviously, this is some of the packaging material. They glued this laminated cardboard together. It's like a brick, man. It's pretty cool. Anyway, I just got it there to keep it from tipping over. Got it on a set of homemade sawhorses. I make these myself. You can use 5 8-foot long 2x4s to make these. I-beam. And you can put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds on those. They're just like, I have put close to 1,000 pounds on a couple of these. They're bulletproof, but clearly I've got some added pieces underneath the plywood to hold the 2 transmissions. So anyway, we're safe. There's a measurement we have to take. It's a cushion, and you'll see it's in the book. And then we're also going to go ahead and fill this thing up with fluid as well. It uses, you can buy the Tremec fluid, or basically, you know what, the same thing. Dexron 3, that's what we're going to use, Valvoline Dexron 3. So, all right, so the next thing we got to do is make sure that the hydraulic throwout bearing is going to play nice with the bell housing and the clutch and all that jazz, because the throwout bearing has to have a certain amount of cushion. When you install it, it can't be bottomed out. It has to have a little more travel to do its job. This particular throwout bearing, when it is installed in the car and when it is at rest, will be compressed against its own internal spring, and then clearly when you press the clutch pedal and the fluid comes in, it'll expand it out and do the work. We have to take a measurement between this surface and the tip of the splines, And then we have to take another measurement, which is the distance between the exterior face of the throwout bearing when you have it completely compressed down to its internal stop. The distance between that and the face of the transmission. And you subtract one from the other, and you get a range that is anywhere from 1/8 to 3/8. As long as you're inside that range, you're golden. If you're outside of that range, you've got to either add or detract spacing from between the transmission and the bell housing to make the hydraulic throwout bearing function correctly. That's all in the instructions. So I've got this Craig. This is actually part of an angle finder for crown molding, but it's graduated. It's got a nice straight edge ruler on it. I'm gonna need some light. I'm going to call it 2 7/16. It kind of varies between 2 3/8 and 2 7/16. All right, so next thing we need to do is go ahead and put the throwout bearing on the transmission and take that measurement. All right, we got the throwout bearing here. The line side, the yellow plug, will go out towards the driver's side, and it is conveniently located with this dowel pin, and there's no hardware that slips it in here. There's actually a couple of holes here for screws, but they don't come with the kit, and I've read where it doesn't matter. It just stays there. So this thing here is good, and that's all you need. If that bothers you, call SilverSport. Next thing we're going to do is compress this and then measure the distance between the end of the compressed face of the throwout bearing and the transmission case with my third hand, which I may have to go get a helper. I'm not sure. So it doesn't require too much effort. But if I had somebody to just compress it for me, and then I could do this and then take the measurement, that would be super nice. So I'm going to go get a helper. All right, that's all we can do for the weekend. I've run into an impasse. So I called my wife to come out here. She compressed this thing for me. I was able to take this measurement here. And you know, I was splitting hairs over there, whether that was 2 3/8 or 2 7/16. Turns out it doesn't really matter, because this is 2 3/8 or 2 7/16 as well. It just doesn't matter, because basically they're the same. So if you look in the manual, you take the dimension over there and you subtract this dimension right here, and they're supposed to be between 1/8 and 3/8. Well, they're basically alike. So that means you are screwed. You don't get to finish your your installation this weekend. You have to order a spacer, and we're going to order one for. I'm not mad at anybody. Okay, just relax. I really wanted to get my transmission installed this weekend. Turns out I can't, because I got to have a spacer. I'm going to call up SilverSport on Monday morning, and I'm going to order one of these 1/4-inch Bellhousing spacers. And they look like that, but go between the transmission and the bell housing. So that's where we're at. Can't go any further this weekend without that. Well, I think we've reached a good stopping point. So there you go. We're going to call this one a video, folks. All right, folks, that's all for now. I appreciate you guys stopping by the channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified whenever I release a new video, don't forget to click that little bell down below. You guys have a good one, and remember to enjoy restoring your classic C3 Corvette with shiny, shiny new parts.